in the coffee break, somebody came over to me and said that they didn't know that people from Denmark could be funny. And I thank very much for that compliment. And I just want to hand over to Thornton Streeter, who's a lot funnier than I am. And he's not Danish. He's a very good friend, and we have sort of crossed paths now for a couple of years. And I think he gives bioenergetic and informational healthcare, energy medicine, a very historical background, and he also gives it a very cultural background and a human face to it. So he really, really puts a lot of what we work with in a context. And I very much appreciate that. And on the other hand, he is very, very sharp on his technologies and what he works with. He works to prove and document and do scientific inquiry with energy medicine. And he wears my belt. Welcome, Thornton.
I was invited to the Sustainability Conference at the United Nations in May. And if any of you have ever been to the United Nations, it's actually quite boring. But New York was beautiful in May. It was very sunny. And I used to take wonderful long walks. And I went to the Metropolitan Museum with my camera. And I was just stunned how many pieces of art had an aura. And it reminded me of visiting museums as a child and the conflict that I had growing up, you know, studying science. Why does modern medicine not have this piece? If the plant biology has the bud and the petals on the same page, why does human biology not have the gland and the chakra on the same page? Why was there a divorce? Why have they been separated? Why is there a no man's land with machine guns pointing at us from the other side? And of course, the reason for this is ignorance and fear. It's also because we haven't had the technology sensitive enough to appreciate the subtle bodies that we as energy medicine practitioners work with. So my journey with you today is very much covering that basic ground between the two worlds. And I think you're going to enjoy it, because part of the process is a discovery of the incredible effect of the NES system. And I don't say that lightly. So my talk is entitled Anatomy and Physiology of the Human Body Field. I'm condescending now to call it a body field. You know, this is Peter's moniker. Scientifically, we call it the biofield. If you look up biofield, you'll find researchers by Glenn Ryan, by Beverly Rubik. I even had the great pleasure a couple of days ago of visiting Popp in his research laboratory. And I was quite sad to see that, you know, there's so little funding for his research that people are having to leave or work for free. So if any of you get the right numbers in the lotto, make sure that you send a check to Popp. About 20 years ago, I had the great fortune of meeting a professor at a university, and her name is Maya Master Moose. She's a Zoroastrian lady, and she showed me a fabulous book called The Rainbow Colors of Light, which she'd written, which was a thesis on radionics, Kirlian-Photographie, color therapy, the whole spectrum that we're all still involved with now. And she said to me, I want you to take this work further. So I am not a self-made scientist. I'm doing what my guru asked me to do. And I've been doing it for 20 years. My president, who's a very eminent scientist called Dr. Shukla, advised me to move to Pune, because Pune is like the Oxford of the East. There's lots of universities, fabulous facilities, and we found a place called MIT, where, because it's a United Nations facility, we felt that our small piece of work could potentially have credibility, even though it was being conducted in India. In fact, the unfolding experience of guardianship that the trustees of that university have done to attempts that have tried to close us down makes me realize there were other reasons why we chose that place. This is my research team. There's quite a few scientists and doctors. My little boy, Raphael. This was a Diwali party we had a few days ago. Diwali is New Year. And this is some of the team when Sarah, the NES research head, came to visit to initiate our NES study. And thinking about Sarah and all the other members of the NES team, could I ask you all just to stand up? And even though they're all working hard, loading up your computers with new software, should we just give them a hand? On your feet. Come on. So if you know about Vastu or Feng Shui or geopathic stress or building biology, you'll understand the significance to health, because I personally do not believe in stroking and poking someone to balance and then releasing them back into a toxic environment. Personally, I think pollution is an illusion. Last night you had a lecture about poison and fear and all this kind of stuff, and I do appreciate the perspective that it came from. But to me, there are 119 elements on Earth, and if we mix them up and put them down again, we can sure as hell work out how to fix that. It's just an opportunity for us to realize that we need to do something. We need to get off our fat ass and do something. That's all pollution is. It's a call to work. My institute is creating a toolbox. I think about the barefoot doctor. I do not think about you. You can buy your own gear. You can cut your way in the world. I'm thinking about the developing world, dusty village, no electricity. What's in my Gladstone bag? What's in my tool belt? And I also feel that we have no right to take someone on a journey to point B unless we know where their point A is. Otherwise, we're just projecting some concept. The last workshop we did last weekend. We need to work out their latitude, their longitude, their altitude, the point that they are. We need to triangulate their health trajectory. Where are they heading? And then we can play. Then we can interact with them. Otherwise, it's a brutal interaction based on a few minutes of discussion and some recent imagery and lessons that we've had. But I'd also feel that there's a golden year, not a golden hour. I can see in you patterns of storms that are going to brew. So if I don't help you steer away from those rocks, it's much easier to do it when you're still in open water. It's a thankless task. healing people who don't know they're broken. And I suggest we all remember that I can only ever heal myself. So I inspire you to become not healers, but teachers. Teachers of priority. Teachers of the pie chart of health. You see, I'll explain. Can anyone tell me what percentage the human body is water? 80 for the average age. It's at 92 in the embryo and 55 when you're an old lady or man. And that means the best anti-aging medicine in the world is... In fact, if you're 80% water, what's the best medicine 80% of the time? Water. So unless your customers or clients are drinking 5-6 glasses of water a day, you are wasting your time. They are wasting their time. It's important to realize we are radio tuners doing a little bit of fine tuning. Their water, their food, is the 99% of the equation. Don't think that you are the conductor that's going to fix their problem. It's a very simple problem, and it's that they're dehydrated and they're not getting enough light in their bodies. Because this is the best medical device ever developed. The glass. Because when we drink from a glass, can anyone tell me what this is? It's H2O. H2O because it's in a bottle, which suffocates it. Only when we pour it into a glass does it take the pran, the chi, the life force, to make it water. So it's inexcusable to drink out of a bottle. Our water is sacred. We need to make it. In our homes, we need to respect it, we need to charge it, we need to re-energize it, we need to revitalize it. Don't go for any of this structured water. We know from Nobel Prize winners that the water can only be absorbed by the cell that's single molecule. Hexagram, water, it's all bollocks. Does that translate well? Emoto, who doesn't know about Emoto? But what does that mean? That means if my son is going to have a maths test tomorrow afternoon, I can make him maths test passing water. I can create, as a family unit, the right water for the family to go through a process. It's magical stuff. You are all in the game of magic. Do not forget that. Protect yourselves with magic. Use magic. You're all witches and wizards. So what I mean to say is that there are 5 elements. And the original element is akash, spirit. And out of spirit is born air. And when we have a lighter, fire, we need spirit and air. No air and the candle goes out. Fire is made of spirit and air, and water is made of spirit, air, and fire. Water is made of the 2 invisible gases in air, glued together with spirit, with some chemistry, some heat, fire. Water, jiao, is a sacred substance which purifies anything below it, earthly. I'm concerned that we live on a planet with a whole load of human doings. Not human beings. A human being is someone who's aware of his center of gravity of consciousness. He's not stuck here doing the disco dance, buy a new Ferrari on the mobile phone. That's someone who's stuck in the fight or flight, basic position. We have a whole gearbox 7 gears and more. Because we learn about this subject through initiation. And I, right now, am initiating you into the masterclass of chakras and meridians. Now, my children, I asked my son at a lecture the other day, what's your favorite drink? Water, he goes. I go, no, really, come on, what's your favorite drink? He goes, Pepsi. The reality isn't exactly what we want. We have to work to realign ourselves with nature. I'm standing here in a plastic bag called a tracksuit. I'm wearing shoes with rubber soles. I'm standing on a plastic carpet on concrete with wires. I am literally in an auric condom called modern society. And we need to shed the condom so that we can interact. So these 2 rats, I was the TV boy in England. Everybody knows me because I did the dairy box adverts, the Kellogg's Cornflakes advert, the chocolate, the roses, the bread, all those corporations that use sweet, innocent faces to sell their nefarious products. But you come to realize that Kellogg's Cornflakes does this to our children. Soda Cocos and Frosties and all the other crap that they box up to sell you, every single one. The true paradigm is the vegetable market, where the early birds get the first worm, everybody buys what they want, and even the beggars at the end can buy a box of avocados for €3. The rats, the cats, the dogs, everybody's fed because it's fresh food. What do we have in the supermarket? Death. Plastic. You have to get your customers out of the supermarket. Otherwise, you are wasting your time. Don't waste your time. I only see a patient once, because if he doesn't get it, what the hell am I going to waste my time with him having him come back? I'm not concerned that I run a one-room hotel, which most therapists do, and that someone's not going to turn up for an appointment, because I fix you so well that all your friends are going to come. Be confident in the referral system. There is some science on my slideshow. I've got a whole stack of CDs of this slideshow outside, and I'm going to ask you to give me a small donation for them, so don't write it down. But there's some slides which I'm going to jump, but they're on that slideshow, because it's boring science, and I don't want to bore you with science. Now, what does the eye see? The eye sees through a crack in the door as thin as a fly's wing. The visible spectrum is just 1 octave. And man and science have spent the last 50 years building periscopes to peer into other parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. The ultrasound, the X-ray machine, thermal imaging. These are devices which allow us to see. See. Why? Because we have to see. Seeing is believing. It's not good enough to listen. I have to see. Why? Because the brain, from all the 5 senses, 80% of the information we process comes from our eyes. We have to see. But at what cost? What is the cost of an ultrasound which allows me to peer into the womb? I will tell you. I'm a specialist in imaging. This is the ball of an orange with a CT scan. And on the right, it's the old-fashioned Kirlian photograph. So what does this mean? I eat light. I crap out orange peel and bits of vegetable matter, but I eat light. I am not a train. You do not shovel in coal and out comes a little bucket of ash.